Take back control. Why, I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument.
Okay, we will be taking back control. And we have already taken back control of our money, our borders and our laws, and we will seize all the opportunities that Brexit brings.
So given what the Prime Minister really thinks about immigration, it is no surprise that in 2025, this Labour government has presided over the worst start to the year in history for illegal immigrants crossing the English Channel.
Hello Envy UK, it's Pete here. Welcome back to the channel, and I've deliberately waited a couple of days to talk to you about Starmer's immigration white paper policy that was announced by the Home Secretary on Monday afternoon. So let's get into it. You've seen a little bit of what the flavour of the video is about to see on the introduction. It's Contradiction by CK Kier. Anyway, right, so got a few clips to play from it, extracts from his immigration speech. And that's one thing you've got to think about here is the optics and the timing of it. So last week we had the local council elections across the land where Reform absolutely romped home and give the two parties an absolute drubbing at the poll stations. So what we got now is Starmer and his cronies on the back foot. They're obviously thinking to themselves, oh, whoa, there's a little bit more of an appetite about immigration than we actually thought. Of course there is. Can't get a doctor's surgery, can't get a dentist's appointment, can't get into the schools, can't get a job. I tell you what, I've got two kids, twin boys, they're 19 next month. One of them cannot get a job. He wants to do warehousing work. He wants to do logistics and distribution. Can't get a look in. Cannot get a look in. Why? Because we import so many people that will do that job because they don't speak English or they have no qualifications or whatever it may be. But immigration is costing us our jobs, our livelihood and our services. And here, look, let's talk through it. Right, firstly, Starmer drama. I can't believe we're having to go down this route again. But here we go.
Because I know on a day like today, people who like politics will try to make this all about politics, about this or that strategy, targeting these voters, responding to that party. No, I'm doing this because it is right, because it is fair, and because it is what I believe in.
Okay, so that's what he believes in, because it's fair and it's this and that. But, you know, he says take back control quite a bit. Well, we saw that it's not a Labour policy. It was a Boris Johnson policy, as indicated about 5 years ago when I showed you the intro clip. But hang on. So that's what you think now. But what have you been historically thinking? Now, I love it. The Conservative Party put out an attack ad against Kier, two-tier Kier. And here it is.
We need to make the wider case on immigration. We welcome migrants. People
Should immigration be reduced?
Well, I don't believe in numbers and I don't believe in salary gaps.
We've always welcomed people to work in this country. We could get a more positive route which didn't take us into the place of, numbers or quotas or, you're only worth having it, you can earn a certain amount of money.
What about foreign nationals living in the UK? Should they get a vote?
I would like us to look at that.
The Labour Party's been a bit scared of making the positive case for immigration for quite a number of years. I think we need to turn that round. The whole of the United Kingdom is better because of immigration.
So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly.
Well, yeah, can you trust him? I don't know. Sorry to have cut in over his final word. I think I'd had enough of his dribble by then. So we've got him saying we absolutely must do it. Then we've got him historically saying he doesn't believe it. He wants more immigration. He thinks immigration, talking about the border or immigration is racist. He has come out with that. I couldn't find the clip though, so I will have a look for that properly. Now, there's one thing, there's a couple of other points through his garbled speech, which was just a load of dribble, in my own humble opinion. Absolute dribble. He's only doing this because he got a kick in last week by Nigel Farage's party, the Reform Party, the party of the future. However, I think when I said about optics at the start of the video, it's the optics of it are this. Normally, a white paper is released and then it's reinforced by a person of stature. However, this is why it's so worrying to the Labour Party last week's election results, is the Prime Minister has come out in the morning to announce the white paper before the Home Secretary. Two things I'm thinking about there. The Home Secretary has no idea what she's on about and the Prime Minister doesn't trust her, and I would agree with that. Or secondly, the Prime Minister wants to show the nation, show us far-right thugs that he's on top of immigration and that he cares and that it should be integration. Talking about integration, check this little one out.
They should also commit to integration, to learning our language. And our system should actively distinguish between those that do and those that don't.
Okay, well, my good friend on LinkedIn posts quite often about bits and bobs that's concerning him. And talking about the integration into the community, etc. Here's a little clip that I saw on LinkedIn of Bradford. Does anyone else now think Kier Starmer's taking the absolute piss out of us? I think so. Wow. Anyway, whilst he was making this speech on Monday, 400 migrants came on small boats. Since he's made the speech on Monday, as was highlighted today in Prime Minister's questions by Nigel Farage of the Reform Party, over 1,000 people have come to the UK illegally, breaking into our country since Monday. Over 1,000 people. Well, if you do 1,000 people a week, that's 52,000 minimum per year. Already we're 30% higher on our immigration small boats arrivals than we were at this point last year. This is the worst start of the year in known history, and it's on the Labour Party's watch. And quite frankly, I'm fed up with it, to be fair. Now, I'm just trying to find the next clip because I think it's well worth look. Yes, that's right. So the next thing I thought stuck out for me during that speech was he talks about skilled workers, apprentices, and the fact that the immigrants are taking jobs away from British people, and I agree. So here's what he had to say on that. I've just lost the clip. There we go. Roll the clip.
Rather than investing in the skills of people who are here and want a good job in their community. Sectors like engineering, where visas have rocketed while apprenticeships have plummeted. Is that fair to Britain? Is that fair to young people weighing up their future to miss out on those apprentices? To see colleges in their community almost entirely dedicated to one-year courses for overseas students?
Right, so there you go. So he's talking about trying to put the kibosh on foreigners coming here and, not contributing. Well, interestingly enough, while he's talking all this utter nonsense, there's a bill going through on Monday next week. Let me just check the date of that for you at the time of recording. Next Monday is the 19th. That is going to potentially, because it's not through yet, allow freedom of movement to anyone from the EU that's aged between 18 and 30, which could account for up to 3 million people. And his argument is, well, they might enjoy going to Romania to become a distribution expert. No, it doesn't work like that, Kier. Everyone is going to come here That's what they're going to do. No one's going to go abroad because they don't speak the language. They don't have the money to, because of your policies have skinted everyone in the last 9 months. So, no. So, actually, that's a load of guff. So, he's going to put through a freedom of movement for young people, for EU citizens, as a temporary or a subtle backdoor to freedom of movement. Now, this is where he's a hypocrite and contradicts himself on a biblical scale, because only last year, don't take my word for it, roll the clip.
On youth mobility, look, again, I have made it clear what our position is, and in particular that free movement is a red line.
A red line, he says. Yet 1 year on, let's rewind. Back it up. We're going to let everyone in the front door or the back door. I don't know. So, okay, it gets even better. So check this out. Right. The next thing is talking about protecting family, work, etc. Here's your clip.
So as this white paper sets out, every area of the immigration system, work, family and study, will be tightened up so we have more control.
Great. That sounds good, but I've got a clip here from another gentleman of the Conservative Party laying out exactly what's wrong at the moment and why he doesn't feel that this is actually going to be any good at all. Check out my honourable friend.
Madam Deputy Speaker, today is, I'm afraid, just another stage in the cycle of political deceit. Now, I should say that my party has in the past been as culpable as the party opposite, and we must be honest about that. Immigration policy must be not just about who comes here, but about who we decide must leave. People here on time-limited visas must be told to go. People who refuse to accept our culture and way of life must leave, and people who have broken the law and those who take out less than they put in must be thrown out. We're going to need to ensure vast numbers of removals and deportations in the years ahead. And we need to remove the legal impediments in domestic law and in international conventions drafted in another age that stop us securing the border and saving our country. And we must be tough about who we allow to come here. We cannot afford to import more of the world's hatreds, nor allow foreign conflicts to be fought out on our streets. We must accept that not every migrant is the same and not every culture is equal. 1 in 50 Albanians in Britain is in jail. 1 in 3 Pakistani and Bangladeshi heritage adults is economically inactive. 72% of Somalis live in social housing. We are a million miles away from doing what is necessary, and despite the rhetoric, this bill takes us even further backwards. Look past the words, and this country will see what this government is.
Thank you very much for that, my honourable friend. Yes, did you hear that? 72% of Somalians live in our social housing. So if your daughter or son-in-law or son and daughter-in-law have just had a baby, normally in the old days, even as recent as 20 years ago, you were supported as a young family into accommodation. Now you are not. Why? Because they're getting preferential treatment to Somalians. Did you hear the statistic about Pakistan residents there? 1 in 3 are not employed and don't contribute to our system. That's 33%, to put it into a bite-sizable number that you might resonate to. 33% of them don't work and don't pay, yet they take. And I'm just had enough of it. It's just driving me wild. So, right. Now, quite frankly, I've had enough. I've literally had enough. I can't sit here any longer and try and report this utter nonsense when it's driving me wild. Please, tell me what your thoughts are in the comments. Leave me a comment. Be honest. Be balanced and be honest, and let me know what you think. If you are getting value from the video, please hit the like button and maybe a cheeky subscribe. It really makes a difference and it helps the channel get further to some like-minded people that are also on the edge of losing their minds. So for balance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the video now, but before I leave you, I'm going to play the Home Secretary announcing the white paper to the House, and I'm going to play the full response, initial response from the opposition. And he has got some amazing points. So make sure you stay tuned for the whole piece of this video. It's a good, 18 minutes long, but I'm sure you're going to want to see it for what it is. Mainstream media only show you 3 to 5 second clips of what they want. They have a narrative, and the narrative is woke. It is radical left-wing lunacy at its finest. And unless you see the full exchange, you won't be able to make your own educated opinion on it. You are intelligent people. Don't listen to what the government says. You know what's right, and you are right. This is an utter outrage. The Conservative opposition, I must say, does hold her to account and does bring up a lot of the things that we are thinking. And it's nice to hear that articulated. So, on that note, I will leave you to it. Don't forget, hit the like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Try not to be too fruity or spicy in the comments, but do let me know how you feel. And I'll see you guys on the next one. That's me, Pete, out. I'll leave you with the Right Honourable Yvette Cooper.
With your permission, I will make a statement on the government's white paper on restoring control over the immigration system. 5 months ago, the figures were published that showed net migration had reached a record high of more than 900,000 under the last Conservative government, a figure that had quadrupled in the space of just 4 years. It was the consequence of specific government choices made from 2020 onwards, including introducing what was effectively a free market experiment on immigration, encouraging employers to recruit from abroad, loosening controls in different areas but without any requirement to tackle skills and labour shortages here at home. Choices which undermined the immigration system and the economy too. This government is making very different choices. We made clear at the time, just as we had set out in our manifesto, this government would restore order and control to the immigration system, bringing net migration substantially down, but also boosting skills and training here at home. The white paper we are publishing today does exactly that, and it is built on 5 core principles. First, that net migration must come down so the system is properly managed and controlled. Second, that the immigration system must be linked to skills and training here in the UK so that no industry is allowed to rely solely on immigration to fill its skills shortages. Third, the system must be fair and effective with clearer rules in areas like respect for family life to prevent perverse outcomes that undermine public confidence. Fourth, that the rules must be respected and enforced, including tackling illegal and irregular migration and deporting foreign criminals. And finally, that the system must support integration and community cohesion, including new rules on the ability to speak English and the contribution that people can bring to the UK. Our United Kingdom is an interconnected and outward-looking nation. Our history and our geography mean that for generations, British people have travelled overseas to live and work, and people have come to the UK to study, work, invest or seek refuge. And British citizens draw on heritage from all over the world, and that has made us the country we are today. Through many years, our country's been strengthened by those who've come here to contribute, from doctors in our NHS, entrepreneurs founding some of our biggest businesses, to those who came through generations to work in jobs from coal mining to caring for our loved ones to serving in our armed forces. People often coming to do some of the most difficult jobs of all. And our trading nation, global leading universities and strong historic international connections mean migration will always be part of our country's future as well as our past. But that is exactly why immigration needs to be properly controlled and managed. And it hasn't been. Overseas recruitment shot up, while training in the UK was cut. Lower skilled migration soared while the proportion of UK residents in work plummeted. In 2019, 10% of skilled work visas went to non-graduate jobs. By 2024, that had risen to 60%. Employers were even given a 20% wage discount if they recruited for shortage jobs from abroad, actively discouraging them from paying the going rate or training here at home. Education institutions were allowed to substantially expand the number of overseas students without proper compliance checks. Social care providers were encouraged to recruit from abroad with no proper regulation. So we saw a serious increase in exploitation, deeply damaging for those who came to work here in good faith, and also for other workers and responsible companies who were being undercut. The rules and laws that are supposed to underpin the immigration system were too often ignored, and by 2024, returns of people with no right to be in the UK were down over a third compared to 2010. And of course, criminal gangs were allowed to build an entire smuggling industry along our borders, undermining security and creating a crisis in the asylum system. Madam Deputy Speaker, later this year we will set out further reforms on asylum and border security and on tackling illegal and irregular migration, building on the new counter-terrorism powers in the Borders, Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill before the House this evening, because no one should be making these dangerous crossings on small boats. But this white paper sets out how we restore that control to the legal migration system so it is sustainable, fair and works for the UK. First, we're overhauling the approach to labour market policy, so for the first time we properly link the immigration system to skills and training here in the UK. So that where there are skills or labour shortages in the UK, immigration should not always be the answer to which employers turn. Because that long-term failure to tackle skills shortages, bring in proper workforce planning, to get UK residents back to work, or improve pay terms and conditions here at home, is bad for our economy as well as for the immigration system because it undermines productivity and growth. So we will lift the threshold for skilled worker visas back to graduate level and above, removing up to 180 different jobs from the list, increasing salary thresholds. Access to the points-based system for lower skilled jobs will be limited to areas on a new temporary shortage list, including jobs which are critical to the industrial strategy, but access will be time limited. There must be a domestic workforce strategy in place, and employers must be acting to increase domestic recruitment. We will expect workforce strategies to be drawn up more widely in other higher skilled areas too, where there is over-reliance on recruitment from abroad. And to support that work, we will establish a new labour market evidence group, bringing together skills bodies from England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, the Department for Work and Pensions, the Industrial Strategy Council and the Migration Advisory Committee to gather and share evidence on shortage occupations in different parts of the country, and also highlight the role that skills, training, pay and conditions and other policies can play in improving domestic recruitment so that increased migration is never again the only answers to the shortages the economy faces. This new approach means we also need to act on social care. The introduction of the social care visa led not only to a huge increase in migration, but also to a shameful and deeply damaging increase in abuse and exploitation. When proper checks were finally brought in, 470 care providers had their licence to sponsor international staff suspended, and 39,000 care workers were displaced. Overseas recruitment for care jobs has since dropped, but it must not surge like that again. And it's time we address the domestic issues, including a proper fair pay agreement to show respect to people who do some of the most important jobs in the country. We are therefore ending overseas recruitment of care workers. It will continue to be possible to extend existing visas and to recruit displaced care workers and people already in the UK with working rights on other visas. Alongside the new visa controls and workforce strategies, we will also increase the immigration skills charge paid by employers who recruit from abroad by 32%. That money will be invested through the spending review in supporting skills and training here in the UK. And we will ensure that Britain continues to attract the brightest and best global talent by enhancing the visa routes for very high-skilled individuals, top scientific and design talent, and people with the right experience to support growth in key strategic industries. Madam Deputy Speaker, international students bring huge benefits to the UK, supporting our world-leading universities and bringing in top talent and investment. But we will strengthen compliance requirements and checks to prevent visa misuse. And currently, too many people on the graduate visa are not doing graduate jobs, so we will reduce the unrestricted period from 2 years to 18 months, and those who want to stay will need to get a graduate job or a skilled worker visa, so we ensure they are contributing to the economy. And just as our rules on work visas are based on the contribution we expect people to make when they come to our country, we will consult later this year on new earned settlement and citizenship rules that apply the same approach, extending the principles of the points-based system, doubling the standard qualifying period for settlement to 10 years, but with provisions to qualify more swiftly that take account of the contribution people have made. And because the ability to speak English is integral to the ability for everyone to contribute and integrate, we will introduce higher language requirements and new language requirements across a range of visa routes for both main applicants and their dependents, so family too can work, integrate and contribute. But the system for family migration has become overly complex, with policies increasingly developed around case law in court decisions rather than a coordinated framework set out by Parliament. So we will set out a new, clearer framework to be endorsed by Parliament, including clarifying how Article 8 rules should be interpreted and applied to prevent confusion or perverse conclusions. We'll review current community sponsorship schemes that support recognised refugees and continue to take action against trafficking and modern slavery. And we will shortly appoint a new Windrush Commissioner to ensure the Windrush lessons continue to be learnt and the Home Office makes sure its standards are upheld. But rules must be respected and enforced across the board, so we will also bring in stronger controls where there is evidence of visa misuse. We are rolling out e-visas and digital ID, including better use of technology to monitor when people are overstaying on their visa or to support the increase in illegal working raids. Since the election, we have increased returns and we will go further. Those who come to our country must abide by our laws. So we will develop new procedures to ensure the Home Office is informed of all foreign nationals convicted of offence, not just those who go to prison. So we can also revoke visas and remove other offenders in a wide range of crimes who are abusing our system. Madam Deputy Speaker, already we're reducing the number of visas being granted this year, and updated figures will be published before the end of the month. Already we're increasing returns with over 24,000 people in the first 9 months, the highest 9-month period for 8 years. The impact of the changes to skilled worker visas, care worker visas, settlements, students and English language is expected to reduce visas by a further around 100,000 a year. And in addition, the new workforce strategies, immigration skills charge, family and asylum reforms will further bring numbers down on top of that. And as the Prime Minister has said, where we need to go further to restore a sustainable system, we will. Madam Deputy Speaker, throughout our history, Britain has been strengthened by people coming to start new businesses, study at universities, contribute to our cultural and sporting excellence, and do some of the toughest jobs in our country. But to be successful, effective and fair, our immigration must be properly controlled and managed. This white paper sets out how we will restore control, fairness and order to the system, how we will continue to bring net migration down, and how we will turn the page on the chaos and failure of the past. I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Home Secretary for advance sight of her statement, not that it was necessary given the extensive leaks and pre-briefing. Now, the Prime Minister claimed this morning that all of a sudden he wants to control immigration. I must say that came to me as something of a surprise. The Prime Minister seems to have undergone a miraculous conversion. He has apparently repudiated everything he has ever believed. Or perhaps the Prime Minister is doing what he always does, saying whatever he thinks people want to hear at any given point in time. Perhaps the Prime Minister sees his minus 36% approval ratings and this paper is his desperate response. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know what the Prime Minister really thinks about immigration because he has often told us. The Prime Minister once described immigration law and border control as racist. He signed a letter opposing the deportation of dangerous foreign criminals, including murderers and rapists. He pledged he would reintroduce full free movement of people, and he sermonised enthusiastically about the benefits of migration. He even said the Yarlswood Immigration Removal Centre should be closed down. Perhaps the Home Secretary can tell us if she'll be following the Prime Minister's advice on that one. So given what the Prime Minister really thinks about immigration, it is no surprise that in 2025, this Labour government has presided over the worst start to the year in history for illegal immigrants crossing the English Channel, up 30% since the election last year, and the worst start to a year ever under this Labour government. So it's also no surprise that this plan is so weak that it barely scratches the surface. On its very first page, it seeks to create a false impression. It says visa applications, and the Home Secretary repeated this a minute ago, saying visa applications are 40% down since the election, implying that is somehow down to this government. Why are visa applications actually down by 40%? It is because of the changes made by the last government, which came into force in April 2024. And from the previous peak, net migration is already forecast to reduce by around about 500,000. And if the Home Secretary is now all of a sudden so keen on reducing migration, will she explain why she suspended the Conservative plan to increase the family visa threshold to £38,000? It was due to come into force last month. Will she tell us when that change will now be introduced? Now, the truth is, Madam Deputy Speaker, this plan is weak and it will have little impact. The Home Secretary admitted on Laura Kuenssberg's programme yesterday the measures will only reduce net migration by 50,000, just 1/10 of the impact of the previous Conservative changes. The honest truth is that we need to go much further than this paper does. Immigration needs to come down a lot more. And under new leadership, the Conservative Party is taking a new approach. Well, you can vote on this later if you're so keen. High immigration has put pressure on housing. It has put pressure on public services, on social cohesion, and on the economy. Because mass low-wage, low-skill migration actually undermines our economy's productivity and costs other taxpayers money, because low-wage migrants consume services which cost the Exchequer more than they pay in tax, particularly where there are dependents. So we need to go much further, and that is why later today the House will vote on 2 Conservative proposals as amendments to the Borders Bill, which I can see members opposite are very excited about the prospect of doing. The first of those amendments will create a binding annual cap on migration to be set and voted on democratically by this Parliament. It will allow full democratic parliamentary control over those migration numbers, deliver complete transparency, and ensure immigration levels are drastically reduced. I can see the Immigration Minister talking enthusiastically from the front bench. I assume that means she'll be supporting this measure. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, secondly, we will vote on an amendment to repeal the Human Rights Act from all immigration matters. Not just tinker with Article 8, as the Home Secretary says. This will stop foreign criminals and others with no right to be here from abusing human rights laws in UK courts, including Article 3. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have a very simple question for the Home Secretary. Well, I'll try anyway. If she is really serious about controlling immigration, will she vote later on today for the immigration cap, and will she vote to repeal the Human Rights Act for all immigration matters?
Home Secretary.